August 14th, 1943, 10:37 a.m. Above the airstrip at Vella La Vella, Solomon Islands. The sky is clear, almost deceptively calm. Down below, coral dust hangs over the Japanese forward airfield, kicked up by the morning's heat and the steady movement of ground crews. A pair of Mitsubishi A6M Zeros circle lazily at medium altitude, silver-green wings flashing in the sun. Their pilots are relaxed, alert, yes, but not tense. They've been here before. For nearly 2 years, this airspace has belonged to them. The Zero has taught Allied pilots painful lessons since Pearl Harbor. Turn tighter, climb quicker, fight smarter, or die. Japanese aviators have come to trust it not just as a machine, but as an extension of themselves. Then one of them hears something strange. Not engine roar, not gunfire, not flak. A shrill, rising whistle, thin at first, almost unreal, slicing down through the air from somewhere above the sun. The Zero pilot looks up. Too late. Out of the glare drops a dark shape, wings bent like a predator's, nose down in a near vertical dive. The sound intensifies into a scream as air tears across metal. In the split second before impact, the pilot sees the white star and bar flash past his canopy. Then, the sky explodes. 6.5 caliber Browning machine guns hammer at once. Tracers rake across the Zero's fuselage. Aluminum skin shreds. The engine coughs, then erupts in flame. The Japanese fighter snaps into a roll, spiraling down toward the jungle in pieces. The attacker never slows. The aircraft, an F4U Corsair, blasts through the debris field, levels for barely a heartbeat, and then pulls straight up into the blue, engine howling, propeller clawing altitude back at impossible speed. Gone. The remaining Zero pilot is stunned. He yanks his stick, trying to climb after it, but the Corsair is already above him, vanished into the glare it came from. This is not how dogfights are supposed to happen. You can almost feel the confusion in the cockpit. The Zero was built for turning battles, for close-in, graceful combat where pilot skill decides everything. But this wasn't a fight. It was an execution, delivered from above, without warning, and finished before a response was possible. On the American side, the Corsair pilot doesn't look back. He's already climbing hard, pushing through thin air, engines straining but steady. His aircraft is heavy, far heavier than the Zero, but it doesn't matter. Speed is his armor now. Altitude is his shield. This is the new rule. The U.S. Marine Squadron operating from nearby strips has drilled this moment relentlessly. No turning, no chasing, no pride. Dive fast, hit once, and leave. If the Zero tries to follow, it bleeds energy. If it tries to turn, it dies. The Japanese pilots don't understand it yet, but they're about to. Minutes later, the whistle comes again. Another Corsair drops from the sun, then another. The sky fills with sudden violence. Zeros scatter, trying to turn, trying to climb, trying to force the kind of fight they know. But every move costs speed. Every second spent pulling hard drains the very thing keeping them alive. One by one, they're hit from angles they can't cover. From above, from behind, from nowhere. On the ground, Japanese crews watch smoke columns rise beyond the runway. Aircraft that left minutes ago aren't coming back. Radios crackle with broken calls, half sentences, shouted warnings, then silence. In American cockpits, there's no celebration, just focus. Corsair pilots glance at gauges, watch temperatures, count seconds in the dive. They don't linger, they don't circle wreckage. They climb, always climb. They've learned the lesson the hard way. Never fight the Zero on its terms. What the Japanese pilots are beginning to feel, slowly, painfully, is something deeper than surprise. It's the first crack in certainty, the unsettling sense that this enemy isn't trying to prove who's better. They're trying to end the fight before it starts. By the end of the morning, the airfield is quiet. Too quiet. Fewer aircraft returned than took off. Maintenance crews stand idle, staring upward, scanning empty sky. Somewhere above the clouds, the Corsairs regroup, engines rumbling, fuel gauges steady enough for another pass. And for the first time since the Pacific War began, Japanese aviators are left with a question they've never had to ask before. What happens when skill is no longer enough? The Zero pilot levels out just above the treetops, heart hammering, hands slick inside his gloves. He scans the sky in tight arcs, searching for the attacker. Nothing, just blue and glare. The Corsair has already climbed beyond visual range, hiding in the sun like a hunter who refuses to be seen twice. This isn't how air combat is supposed to feel. For years, Japanese aviators have lived by a set of rules learned in China and proven in the opening months of the war. Keep the fight close, force the enemy to turn, bleed him dry with skill. The A6M Zero was designed around that philosophy, lightweight, responsive, deadly in a spiral where experience mattered more than horsepower. But what just happened above Vella Valella didn't fit the pattern. The Zero pilot tries to regain altitude. The engine screams as he pulls back on the stick, but the climb is shallow now. He's already spent too much energy dodging a threat he never saw coming. The air feels thick, heavy. Above him, somewhere unseen, the Corsairs are already repositioning. In the lead American formation, the lead pilot, U.S. Marine Corps, patched flight suit, oxygen mask tight, watches the altimeter unwind upward. The Corsair's Pratt & Whitney R2800 Double Wasp roars with a deep, steady confidence. This aircraft doesn't climb like a ballerina. It climbs like a hammer. He remembers the briefing. He remembers the warnings. Never turn with a Zero. Never chase it down. If you miss, climb. If you hit, leave. There's no romance in it, no spinning dance across the sky, just angles, speed, and timing. The Corsair wasn't built to impress enemy pilots, it was built to end them. Down below, another Zero banks hard trying to protect a wingman. The move costs him speed. He doesn't feel it immediately. The aircraft still responds, still feels familiar. Then the whistle comes again. This time the pilot recognizes it. Too late again, but recognition changes everything. Fear replaces confusion. He shoves the throttle forward, dives to gain speed, tries to force the fight horizontal. The Corsair flashes past anyway, guns ripping through the airspace he just vacated. Tracers carve white lines through the sky where his cockpit would have been a heartbeat earlier. He survives by chance alone. The Zero shudders as fragments punch through a wing. Control stiffens, fuel pressure drops. The pilot pulls away, desperate to disengage, but the Corsair doesn't follow. It never follows. That's what unnerves him most. In earlier battles, American fighters chased. They committed. They bled energy trying to stay in the fight. Zeros fed on that impatience. But these pilots don't chase. They strike once, then vanish upward like ghosts. From the ground, Japanese observers see the pattern forming, dark shapes diving nearly vertical, firing in brutal, concentrated bursts, then climbing straight back into the sun. No turning fights, no prolonged engagements, just sudden death from above. It feels unfair. It feels mechanical. And that's the point. The Corsair's speed advantage, especially in a dive, is overwhelming. Once gravity takes over, physics does the fighting. The Zero simply cannot accelerate fast enough to escape, nor climb fast enough to counter. Every defensive maneuver drains precious energy. Every second spent reacting widens the gap. The American pilots know this. They feel it in the controls. They feel it in the way the Corsair surges forward when pointed down, how it shrugs off control stiffening at speeds that would tear a lighter aircraft apart. This isn't a duel. It's geometry. By midday, Japanese radio chatter changes tone. Gone is the confidence. Gone are the clipped professional calls. Now there are warnings shouted too late, frantic reports of attacks from above, frantic instructions to stay together that no one can actually follow. Formation flying only makes them easier to spot. One pilot breaks away, diving low over the jungle, trying to use terrain as cover. The Corsair ignores him. There are other targets, one still climbing, still trying to meet the enemy on equal terms. Those are the ones who die. In the ready rooms that night, American Marines don't boast. They sit quietly, helmets on the floor, sweat-stained flight suits hanging loose. They mark claims carefully. They talk about angles and timing, not kills. They've learned something crucial, and it's spreading fast across the Pacific. You don't beat the Zero by being better at what it does. You beat it by refusing to play its game at all. And somewhere across the airfields of the Japanese Empire, pilots begin to feel the shift, the uneasy sense that the sky itself has turned against them, that no amount of training can close the gap once the enemy controls altitude, speed, and the terms of engagement. The Corsairs will be back tomorrow, and next time, the whistle won't sound strange at all. It will sound inevitable.
The next morning begins the same way. Heat rising off coral, engines warming, pilots strapping in with practiced motions that feel, for the first time, slightly rehearsed against doubt. A Japanese flight leader signals his wingman into the air. He has flown since China. He survived the opening months of the war. He trusts his Zero. He trusts himself. But now there's a new instruction passed quietly over the radio before wheels leave the ground. Watch above you. They climb cautiously, scanning the upper sky as much as the horizon. Necks strain, eyes squint into glare. Every cloud edge feels threatening. This is already a loss. The Zero was never meant to fight this way, defensively, anxiously, looking up instead of hunting forward. Every second spent searching the sun is a second not spent flying clean, efficient patterns. Above them, the Corsairs are already there. High altitude, engines throttled back, wings steady. American pilots sit almost motionless, letting the enemy do the work of exposing themselves. From up here, Zeros look small, slow, predictable. You can almost feel the imbalance. A Marine pilot adjusts his dive angle by a few degrees, just enough. He waits until the Zero formation tightens, until instinct pulls them together for safety. Then he drops. The whistle starts soft and rises fast, like air screaming in protest. Gravity stacks the deck. Speed builds beyond what Zero pilots can imagine matching. The Corsair shakes slightly, then settles as airflow locks it in. A Zero pilot sees the shadow cross his wing. He yanks the stick hard left, too hard. The aircraft bleeds speed. Control surfaces mush. For an instant, the Zero feels heavy, wrong, like it's flying through syrup. The Corsair fires. Not a spray, not desperation, short, brutal bursts. The American pilot doesn't need much time. At this speed, the guns do terrible things. The Zero shudders. Pieces come away. Smoke pours from the cowling. The pilot bails out, canopy gone, body tumbling as the aircraft drops away beneath him. The Corsair is already gone. Climbing. Always climbing. By midday, the Japanese pilots stop trying to climb after them at all. Instead, they stay low, hoping altitude denial will keep the enemy from diving cleanly. It doesn't. The Corsairs simply start higher. This is the realization spreading through the ranks. Not in one dramatic meeting, not in a single briefing, but cockpit by cockpit, sortie by sortie. Skill can't cancel physics. No matter how tight the turn, no matter how experienced the pilot, no matter how brave the attempt, speed plus altitude wins. In debriefings, Japanese officers talk about new American tactics. They speak of discipline, of improved pilots, of better coordination. But privately, some begin to understand the deeper truth. This isn't just tactics, it's production. Every Corsair lost is replaced, every damaged aircraft repaired. Squadrons rotate, pilots rest, machines improve. The F4U grows stronger with each month, fixes to landing gear, refinements to dive behavior, new confidence in its limits. The Zero does not. It is still light, still agile, still lethal, if the enemy cooperates. But the enemy no longer does. Late in the afternoon, a Japanese pilot lands with barely enough fuel left. His hands shake as he unstraps. He's flown 3 sorties. He's seen 3 men not return. He sits on the wing and stares at the sky. Above the clouds, the Corsairs regroup again, untouched. And for the first time, a thought forms that none of them want to say out loud. The sky no longer belongs to us. The whistle doesn't mean danger anymore. It means certainty.
By late 1943, the pattern is no longer accidental. It shows up in after-action reports, in the spacing between radio calls, in the long silences where voices used to be. Japanese pilots still fly, they still fight, but the sky has changed its rules, and everyone can feel it. A Zero pilot climbs cautiously, careful not to bleed speed, careful not to show his belly to the sun. He's learned. Everyone has, but learning doesn't change the numbers. Above him, the Corsair waits. The F4U's weight, once criticized, once mocked, has become its weapon. In a dive, mass becomes momentum. Airspeed builds so fast that control stiffening no longer matters. The aircraft is locked in, committed, unstoppable. The Zero cannot match it without tearing itself apart. You can almost feel the moment when the realization hits mid-flight. A Zero rolls into a turn that would have saved him in 1942. The muscle memory is perfect, the maneuver is flawless, and it does nothing. The Corsair doesn't follow. It cuts across the turn instead, using speed to collapse distance. The guns speak once, twice. The Zero shudders. It's over. On the ground, Japanese commanders begin changing instructions. Avoid engagement unless altitude advantage is assured. Disengage early. Preserve pilots. Preserve machines. Those words would have been unthinkable a year earlier. But even caution fails. The Corsair's pilots don't need the enemy to make mistakes. They only need them to exist in the same airspace. In American briefings, the tone is clinical. Dive angles, entry speeds, pull-out limits, G-forces measured, calculated, tested. The aircraft has limits, but they are known limits, documented and repeatable. The Zero's limits are discovered the hard way. Another morning, another scramble, another Japanese formation rises, hesitant now, scanning upward, necks craned back so far they ache. The Corsairs are already there. The first dive doesn't hit anyone. It doesn't have to. It breaks formation. Panic ripples. Zeros scatter. The second dive finds targets. The third is unnecessary. Somewhere between those passes, something changes permanently. This is no longer a contest of skill versus skill. It's a system versus a system. Training, logistics, aircraft design, fuel supply, replacement pilots, all moving together in one direction. Downward, out of the sun. In Japanese ready rooms that night, pilots sit quietly. No jokes, no boasting, just long stares at flight maps and empty chairs. They don't say it aloud, but they all understand it now. You can't outfly gravity, and you can't outproduce an enemy who has turned the sky itself into a weapon. By early 1944, the warning signs are everywhere. Japanese airfields grow quieter between scrambles. Fewer aircraft line the revetments. Mechanics work longer on fewer machines, cannibalizing damaged Zeros to keep others flying. Pilots walk more slowly now. They look up more often. They have learned what the sound means. When the whistle comes, it no longer brings surprise. It brings dread. A veteran Zero pilot, scarred canopy, patched control surfaces, takes off knowing exactly what awaits him. He climbs anyway. That is his duty. That is all that remains. Above him, the Corsairs orbit patiently. There is no hurry. Fuel is plentiful. Replacements are coming. The pilots rotate through missions like parts on an assembly line that never stops. This imbalance seeps into every encounter. Zeros begin flying lower, hugging terrain, hoping the Corsairs will overshoot or lose sight. It works sometimes, but it also limits vision, limits options, limits escape. Every defensive choice trades one danger for another. The Corsair pilots adjust effortlessly. They dive shallower. They attack from offset angles. They fire earlier and pull away cleaner. The aircraft allows it. The doctrine encourages it. And with each engagement, Japanese pilots understand more clearly what they are facing. Not just a fighter, a system. The F4U is only the visible edge of it. Behind it are factories that never sleep, training programs that absorb losses without flinching, fuel pipelines that stretch across oceans, and carriers that rotate squadrons like clockwork. The Zero pilot sees only the end result, a dark shape falling out of the sun, a scream of air, a flash of tracers, then silence. There's no counter for that. One afternoon, a Japanese flight commander returns alone. His aircraft is riddled. His wingman is gone. He taxis in and cuts the engine. The propeller ticks as it slows. No one speaks. They don't need to. Everyone on that strip understands now. The sky is no longer a place where experience guarantees survival. It is a place governed by speed, altitude, and relentless pressure. The war has crossed the line, and on the far side of it, the Corsairs wait, already climbing for the next dive. By mid-1944, the realization is no longer confined to cockpits. It reaches command rooms, it reaches training schools, it reaches the quiet moments when pilots sit alone, helmet on their knees, listening to engines start outside. The Zero is still respected, it is still deadly in the right hands, but now it is spoken of in the past tense, what it used to do, how it used to fight, what worked before. Above the islands, the Corsairs keep coming. They arrive fast, they arrive from altitude, they arrive on their own terms. Japanese pilots begin trying something new, avoiding combat altogether. They break off early, they dive away at the first sign of danger. Some refuse to climb into the glare at all unless absolutely necessary. This too is a defeat. Because air superiority isn't just about kills, it's about freedom. The freedom to patrol, to strike ground targets, to escort bombers, to deny the enemy even the chance to fight. The Corsair now provides that freedom. On one island after another, Marine squadrons push forward. Airfields fall silent after only a few days of contact. Zeros still rise, but fewer each week. Pilots still fight, but with the knowledge that survival is becoming a matter of luck, not mastery. You can almost feel the weight of it. Every dive the Corsair makes carries more than bullets. It carries certainty. The certainty that speed decides the fight, that altitude decides the outcome, that physics once claimed cannot be argued with. Japanese pilots still look up, but now they look up knowing what waits there. The whistle has become a warning with no answer. And somewhere between the first dismissive laugh and the last cautious scramble, the balance of air power in the Pacific tips beyond recovery. The Zero is no longer the predator, it is prey. And the Corsair does not circle, it strikes once and leaves nothing behind but smoke and the sound of air tearing past. If this story stayed with you, take a moment to let us know. A simple like helps this history reach people who may never have heard it. It tells the algorithm that these moments still matter. Subscribe if you want to stay with us. Here, we uncover the moments in the Second World War when everything changed, when there was no return. These are not just battles.
They are human realizations, sacrifices, and truths buried beneath decades of noise. If you feel comfortable, leave a comment. Tell us where you're watching from. The United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, or somewhere else entirely. Tell us if someone in your family lived through this war. You're not just watching a video, you're helping keep these memories alive. Because once the stories disappear, there really is no return. Thank you for watching.